We all have slightly different versions of ourselves, don't we? There's the you at work, maybe the you at home, the one that shows up on holiday. But for some people, that difference isn't just like changing hats. It's this really deep, almost jarring split between their public self and their private identity. And that can create some serious tension, often hidden away. Specifically, how cross-dressers manage this, especially when they're in really conservative or, traditionally male-dominated fields. Our main source here is Gender Benson's work, The Business Suit and the Babydoll, Managing Duality in Professional Life. And our mission really is to pull out the key insights, the emotional side, the practical stuff, what it costs people, and crucially, how they navigate it all. So, okay, let's unpack this a bit. The business suit, it's obviously more than just clothes, right? Especially in fields like finance, law, engineering, politics, big corporate leadership roles. The suit is almost a uniform. It's like this armor that says, I'm serious, I'm reliable. It signals this strict code.
Marks you as part of this, elite disciplined group. It's a super powerful symbol.
It really is. And what's fascinating, or maybe quite difficult, is that for men who cross-dress, that symbol of conformity and power, it becomes this external mask. It's a constant reminder of the limits placed on who they really are. It forces this really rigid, prescribed performance of masculinity that can just feel completely alienating or even suffocating. It's not just fabric, it's a feeling of being trapped.
Yeah, and the stakes for keeping up that performance are just incredibly high.
Yeah.
You're talking about promotions, financial stability, and underneath it all, this constant, profound fear of being discovered. The worry about discrimination, maybe ridicule, even losing your job, it's very real. So in that light, the business suit isn't just about looking sharp to impress people. It becomes this enforced identity. You wear it to climb the ladder, sure, but also just to protect yourself. Okay, now let's flip that completely. Imagine the suit comes off. What often takes its place, symbolically at least, is something like the baby doll dress or, other feminine clothes. And this represents something totally different: softness, maybe vulnerability, and this real sense of freedom in private expression.
Exactly. For these individuals, it's often described as this really intimate connection to their true self. Putting on feminine clothes in private isn't trivial. It's an act of self-care. It's affirmation. It becomes a way to manage anxiety, to explore who they are, maybe experience some joy outside of those really strict gender roles society pushes on them.
And this is the crucial thing, isn't it? Because society often puts such a stigma on this kind of expression, particularly for straight men in these conservative jobs, that baby doll, that expression, it usually has to stay hidden.
Right. It becomes this secret language, spoken only when they're alone.
Yeah.
And that secrecy, that hiddenness, it creates this incredibly complicated emotional situation. Because while the private cross-dressing can feel so empowering, so healing, it also carries this heavy weight. It can actually reinforce feelings of being isolated or ashamed, fragmented even. You have this private, authentic self completely cut off from the professional world. Like you said, a secret language only spoken in solitude.
Right. And this is where it gets really interesting into the deep human experience of it all. For so many in these situations, it's literally business suit by day, baby doll by night. And that split, that duality, you can just imagine the emotional strain it causes.
Oh, absolutely. Think about that mask of masculinity they have to wear at work. It's not just about looking the part. It's adopting this whole persona, being stoic, assertive, totally in control, just maintaining that day after day. The sheer energy it takes leads to exhaustion, massive stress, and this nagging feeling of, not being real, of being inauthentic. It's performing a role, even when it feels fundamentally wrong.
And then there's the isolation you mentioned.
Yeah.
The secrecy. Always being afraid of being found out. It keeps people silent, doesn't it? Leads to this deep loneliness, alienation. The psychological cost there sounds immense. Things like anxiety, depression, feeling like you're just worth less.
It can be incredibly damaging. But conversely, and this is really important, there's also often tremendous joy and relief found in that private expression. That personal space, even if it's limited, is where they can reclaim some agency over who they are. It can genuinely boost mental well-being, help them feel a bit more integrated, even if only when they're alone. It can be a real lifeline.
But that sets up this huge conflict, doesn't it, between the roles? The more successful you become in your career, the harder it might be to reconcile that professional identity with your private self. And, embracing the cross-dressing more openly, that could torpedo your career in these fields. So it forces these incredibly tough, sometimes heartbreaking choices. So, yeah, hiding might seem necessary, maybe even unavoidable for a while. But keeping it up long-term, that prolonged concealment, it really takes a toll psychologically. It doesn't sound sustainable.
No, it really isn't. The research is pretty clear on the costs. There's emotional exhaustion just from the constant self-monitoring, watching every word, every action. Then there's what's called fragmented identity. Your sense of self literally gets split. The public you and the private you feel like completely different people, maybe even at odds. That creates constant internal conflict.
That sounds incredibly stressful.
It is, and it often leads to impaired relationships. Secrecy just builds walls. It's hard to have real intimacy or connection when you're hiding such a fundamental part of yourself. And then, critically, there are significant mental health risks. The studies link this kind of prolonged concealment to higher rates of depression, anxiety, and yeah, in some really severe cases, even suicidal thoughts.
Wow. Okay, so those costs are severe. And that really drives people to find ways to manage this tension, right? Even if they need to keep their job. So what can people actually do? What are the strategies, the kinds of emotional courage people draw on to navigate this?
Well, the research points to several key approaches. First off, creating safe spaces. This is huge. It means finding or, building communities where they feel accepted. That could be online forums, private meetups, or just a circle of really trusted friends. These spaces provide absolutely vital emotional support and, crucially, they cut down on that intense isolation we talked about.
Finding your tribe, essentially, a place you don't need the mask. Okay, what else? How do they handle telling people or not telling people?
That brings us to selective disclosure. And this is really about taking back control. It's the act of consciously deciding when, where, and who you're going to tell about your cross-dressing. It lets them manage their own story, their own narrative. Maybe it's telling a close friend or a partner, or perhaps it's learning how to navigate certain conversations at work very carefully. It puts them back in the driver's seat,
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Taking control. So, if you found safe spaces, maybe told a few trusted people, how do you manage the day-to-day balance?
Another important one is boundary setting, basically keeping clear lines between work life and personal life. This might look like scheduling specific times for cross-dressing when you're off the clock, or maybe setting up a dedicated private space at home just for your feminine things. Clear boundaries help manage the switch. And then, perhaps the most internal work is self-compassion and affirmation. This means actively working against that internalized shame society often imposes. Practicing self-kindness, affirming your own worth regardless of gender norms. This is critical for emotional health, for feeling whole again.
That definitely sounds like deep personal work. Is external help often needed too, like therapy?
Oh, absolutely. Seeking professional support can be incredibly valuable. Finding a therapist who understands gender diversity, who gets it, they can help process all those complex emotions, develop better coping skills, and sometimes they can help plan for disclosure or figure out paths towards integrating identity more fully if that's the person's goal. It offers a kind of structured support through massive personal challenges.
So while individuals are finding these coping strategies, what about the bigger picture? Is the work environment itself changing at all? Are workplaces becoming any more inclusive when it comes to gender expression?
Well, there is some progress, definitely. But it's important to be realistic. It's still pretty uneven and far from complete. We are seeing some companies adopting policies that explicitly protect employees from discrimination based on gender expression. Some are looking at gender-neutral dress codes. We're also seeing more employee resource groups, for LGBTQ plus folks and gender nonconforming individuals. And there's more talk about allyship and education. These shifts, though sometimes slow, do offer a bit of hope for a more accepting future.
Okay, so given all the individual strategies, the slow societal shifts, what does it really mean for someone trying to balance being authentic with, the practicalities of their career? It still sounds like walking a tightrope.
It absolutely is, for many. That choice between authenticity and practicality, it's rarely straightforward. It involves this constant weighing of risks and benefits and aligning with your own core values. Some people might eventually decide their psychological well-being is paramount. They might come out, maybe even transition openly, even if it means changing careers. Others might prioritize their career, their financial security, and decide to keep their cross-dressing private, perhaps hoping society will catch up later. The key thing from the research is that neither choice is inherently better or worse. It's deeply personal. Each person has to find their own path.
When you put it all together, the business suit and the baby doll, they really do symbolize so much more than just clothes, don't they?
Yeah.
They represent this really complex, often hidden dance between identity, how we express ourselves, and frankly, survival in a world that often demands we fit into neat boxes.
Exactly. And while that duality, that split, can be the source of so much tension, so much pain, it can also, paradoxically, be a source of incredible strength. resilience. The way forward, both for individuals navigating this and for society as a whole, really involves acknowledging this complex emotional reality, seeking out support, and continuing to push for workplaces that are truly inclusive.
Yeah. It really is a powerful testament to the courage it takes to just live true to yourself, isn't it? Even when the world seems to be asking you to wear masks, that dance between the business suit and the baby doll, it goes on.